Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening in the market today. The market pretty nicely green, Tesla down 3.5%. What does that mean moving forward? I'll give you my thoughts if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, updates, etc. Well, again, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day as the market's open and trading. Definitely check that out. That link is, of course, down below in the description of the video. Just click that first link and you get access to my first tier, which is of course just $3 a month. You get access to all my Tesla updates, options flow, different time frame analysis, broader market updates. Again, just $3 USD a month. That's all it is. 5 includes, of course, NVDA, and then 7 USD a month includes the whole package. So everything I mentioned plus my tier 3 posts, essentially stocks that are not Tesla, not NVIDIA. Access to our private Discord where we have a tier 3 chat room, members day trading, sharing thoughts, opinions, etc. And every Sunday I do chart requests with members over on Discord as well. So yeah, we'd love to have you there. But Tesla down, unfortunately, 3.5%, $433.5 per share. So what is going on? Why did this happen? Why are we not moving higher, right? After such a bullish day yesterday? Well, I wouldn't say that this downtrend or this kind of, red day for Tesla stock, I wouldn't say it's a concern. At least not yet, right? I'm obviously, it could be, but I wouldn't say it's a concern yet for multiple reasons. So let's start off on the 1 hour time. Actually, let's go to the 15, right? So yesterday I was mentioning, right, despite the bullishness, right, I mentioned how, we were technically breaking out. I don't know what this, I might have deleted it by accident. We were technically breaking out over here as well, right? So there was a lot of bullishness setting up. There was, a potential breakout, but I mentioned yesterday how when I see these kind of breakouts, what I like to look for is, remember how I mentioned that's a smaller time frame, 5 minute, 15 minute, whatever. I usually use the 5 minute. 15 is good as well though, depending on, your risk tolerance, I guess. But even the 15 or the 5, right? I mentioned how, I like to see when we start looking like we're ready to break out, I like that final confirmation of, well, a true breakout, right? Because yeah, we broke that downward trend line, slightly, which is great. But I need to see an actual true breakout above horizontal levels as well, right? And this is what I mentioned yesterday, right? I was giving a whole lecture on this. Hopefully it helps someone today. But I mentioned, at least a 5 minute, 15, the higher the better. Candle closure above what, blatantly was a very obvious resistance. Well, not that long ago, right? Pretty much in the past, right? And you can see about 450 was that level. Now we opened up this morning with a push above 450. We actually went all the way up to pretty much 452. But notice now we couldn't even close a 5 minute candle above this, right? And we instantly got smacked back down. This is why sometimes, having some patience and waiting for some level of confirmation like this is critical. Because, if you, let's say, saw this breakout and you weren't patient and you just bought right in right here, and let's say you didn't respect the stop loss, especially, well, now you're holding this whole thing down, from, let's say, the peak to the lowest point, roughly, or we'll say closing, it's 4%, right? Already down 4%. So this is why it's important to wait for those confirmations, right? And we didn't really get that confirmation on that breakout that I was talking about yesterday with those, 5 or 15 minute candle closures above blatant resistance levels, right? 450. So again, does this mean that Tesla's now officially bearish? No, it does not, right? This doesn't mean Tesla just has officially turned bearish. It just means that we're just not ready yet, simply put, right? There's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So for instance, because we're clearly not ready yet, this is where we start looking at the Fibonacci's, because yes, despite this not being an actual breakout just yet, because we didn't get those candle closures, the price still went above this range, which is still a good sign, right? So what that tells me is the fact that because we went up here and because we made essentially still a fresh high, despite it, not lasting very long, any pullback from here until proven otherwise, I do view as a bullish pullback. The first level is going to be this 0.5 Fibonacci, which is around this sort of 432, 433 level, which we're actually kind of hanging on right now. Below that, I see the 618 Fibonacci, which the low of the day was actually pretty much there, 430 low of the day. This Fibonacci is at 428.5, so about $1.50, right? So pretty much within this zone, which is good. So this is the area right here, which we have tested actually already. And this is what I was telling my members about, is the level that in the ideal world, yeah, this is where I do want the bulls to start, holding up the stock, right? I would definitely prefer not to see much lower than essentially 2 days low, about 428, right? That's kind of the level that, again, if the bulls really want to see higher, if the bulls really want to break above 450 and head their way up to, the mid to low 460s, for instance, this is where I want to see them hold, this level right here. Now, let's say we don't hold. Let's say, things don't go as planned, for instance, right? And we do go down below even lower and we lose 428. We lose the 618 Fibonacci, the red line over here. Well, the final chance is this green fibs right here, pretty much right back at that 420, 422 support level that has bounced price up several times. That is like the last chance in my opinion. If we lose this again, I think the bullish momentum is over and I do think we start going into correction territory. Now we're still a ways away. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's worth understanding that, well, if these key levels are lost again, then we really start entering problems. So let's continue monitoring that and see how this goes, right? But those are the main levels I'm looking for going into early next week for us to hold. Ideally, pretty much, the last 2 hour candles, this range right here, this is the level, is my ideal scenario. Kind of worst case, bull case is the green fibs down here and we head higher. Below this, we enter problems. So let's continue monitoring that. But again, if you're someone that likes to just wait for strength, because a lot of people, what they do is, some people, there's various trading styles, right? Some people buy breakouts, some people buy, bullish pullbacks, which arguably, like I said, around these levels, this is technically a bullish pullback, at least as of right now. I see no reason to consider it anything else. Or, and this is, depending on how risky I'm feeling, right? Either I'll buy it at these key levels when I see a bullish reaction on a candle. Like for instance, the last 2 1 hour candles are actually looking pretty decent, to be honest. Arguably 2 hammer candles, not too bad. A hammer into a doji, not bad. But the second way is, well, again, the way I was explaining yesterday and just explained this morning, those, breakout levels. 450 is a breakout level, 5 or 15-minute candle closure above 450, and then the stop loss, the low of the day. Pretty good risk reward there as well. It's outlined. It just makes sense. There's no guessing. There's no like, oh my God, but what if this? What if that? No, you have your levels. You have your outlines. Break 450, low of the day, stop loss, target, let's say 465 or 464-ish. That's it. There's your trade. Problem solved. You have your levels. There's no second guessing. There's no emotion. It's good to go. So as I'm explaining that, that's also kind of what I'm expecting. Again, if we hold these levels and ultimately break above 450, I do think a retest of at least this kind of 460 level is the first level to watch for. If we break above and start holding, then I think a previous all-time high test is also likely. About mid to high 480s, we'll say. And that's kind of my targets to the upside, right? To the downside, again, pretty much 420 has to be lost again. If 420 is lost again and we start closing candles below that again, it really just makes me start questioning that bullish momentum and if there really is anything left, or this kind of, huge buying yesterday on pretty good volume, which is why I'm, not really, I don't lean bearish here by any means, at least not yet, because the volume yesterday was pretty good too. But then, again, if we lose 420 again, that becomes an actual problem. And to the downside, I do think, again, 390 gap filled all the way down to about 360 to 370 becomes the targets. That's kind of my, kind of short going to next week to potentially slightly midterm outlook right now overall on Tesla and the levels that, need to hold, need to break, etc. for both directions as well. So let's continue monitoring that and see where this actually kind of takes us overall going into next week. What else? The weekly, right? What is the weekly showing us? Let me go ahead and put this so that it's only visible on this time frame. Going to the weekly, still resisting, guys. We bounced off or got damn close to that 9 exponential moving average on the weekly, which is good. We're only away by a few dollars. That's not bad. It's catching up, which is good. But we're still stuck at this damn green Fibonacci's, guys. Every single time it's looking like maybe this is the week. Maybe finally we can close above these green Fibonacci's. And yesterday the candle was looking much different than it is today, wasn't it? But this is why candle closures are important. This is why those confirmations, if you have the patience, which you should, are important. We're not getting those strong candle weekly closures above these green Fibonacci's, the low 440s. Every single candle attempt above them has been rejected. We need a nice closure above this. Every move up here has so far been a bull trap into another close below. So a weekly closure above 440 would be a good sign, or a weekly closure, in my opinion, honestly, pretty much below about 410 to 412 would be a potential concerning sign to a deeper pullback. So, that's something else to watch for. Clear area of resistance, clear area of support on the weekly time frame. So also watch for those levels. But the point I'm trying to make is the fact that, guys, we need to close a weekly above these green Fibonacci's, right? It needs to happen. It needs to happen. Maybe it'll happen next week. We don't know, right? We just simply do not know until it actually, of course, happens. So something else worth watching. And the final thing I want to talk about is, of course, going to be the 4-hour time frame. Now, one of my favorite indicators to use on honestly a lot of stocks, other than very, very small caps, because they're much more parabolic up or down, is going to be, of course, the 4-hour time frame with the SMI down here. We can see that the SMI, as we approached, even before earnings, was already in the upper level over here. And then as we essentially made equal highs, this made arguably lower highs. So in other words, the SMI is at the top end of the territory, of the range, right? So, every time the SMI has been towards the upper end of the range, other than this, parabolic move, which of course happened, even then it was still fairly close. But you can see, for instance, back here, top of the range, retrace, close to the bottom of the range, rally. Now at the top of the range, retrace, and we're still up here. So that's why, the way I look at it and the way to kind of incorporate everything together with the 1 hour retrades, bullish Fibonacci's, breakout 450, 4 hours overbought, whatever, put it all together in one picture. What does it mean in my perspective? We need a breakout above 450 for a confirmed move higher, right? 460s, maybe even 480s, right? But until we get that, there is a chance that this move to the upside actually stalls out maybe a little bit longer than initially anticipated, including the 1 hour fib. So we can come back down, maybe get a small bounce, maybe come back to the green fibs or a little bit deeper into the red fibs here. And ultimately, we actually can essentially do a whole lot of nothing, maybe a little bit longer than initially anticipated, which will then also have the 4 hour SMI kind of cool off a little bit as we kind of maybe come down here, get a small bounce, and essentially zigzag a little bit, maybe make a small little bow flag here, always a possibility, but essentially do a whole lot of nothing, maybe for a little bit longer, maybe for a few more days at least, but then the 4 hour SMI cools off, and then a break above 450 will give it plenty of room, including with the SMI, to head higher together. That's kind of what I see right now, right? So it just tells me that the stock isn't ready, which is why, again, sometimes the easiest and safest option is just wait for that confirmed strength, wait for the strength to come in, wait for that break above those key levels. And that's when you strike with a very blatant stop loss, essentially, again, that low of the day, right? So, that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. The stock it's not ready just yet, right? We need that breakout. But again, maybe we cool off a little bit here more, a little bit more zigzaggy action. 4 hour SMI cools off, then we break out, 4 hour SMI starts heading up, and it gives us more room to head higher with it. So anyways, that's kind of how I see it. SPY, right? What do we have on SPY? Let's go back to the daily time frame here. SPY made a good move, right? I mentioned how we had CPI this morning, but I mentioned how I do want to see SPY get back above 674, which we did. Not only are we above 674, but now we're almost like trying to turn this area back into support, which is all good signs, right? The market is looking pretty good. Now, it's a little bit extended from the EMAs, which is fine. So we could get, maybe a little sideways action as we get into a pretty big next week, because we have a lot of earnings next week. We have Microsoft next week, Wednesday. We have Amazon next week, Thursday. We have Apple next week, Thursday. We have Google next week, Wednesday. We have Meta next week, Wednesday. We have a lot of earnings coming up next week, guys. So, wouldn't surprise me if the market kind of stalls out for the beginning of the week as we start approaching those earnings. And that's when we start getting potentially bigger moves one way or the other. I actually think a lot of the Max 7 stocks look pretty good. Like Microsoft, I think looks pretty good. I think Amazon's looking pretty good, potentially breaking out here. Apple's holding pretty much all-time highs. Google's looking very, very bullish. Meta's trying to recover above 740s. It's just Netflix and Tesla's not looking bad. Netflix is probably the worst looking one by far. Hey, you know what? I like knives, but okay, I don't like knives. But if there's a knife I like to catch, hey, it's Netflix. I'm just saying, I like the stock. But let's see how earnings goes. Huge earnings next week. Who knows how it's actually going to play out? But the charts for most of the Max 7s do look pretty good. As long as earnings don't disappoint or the market, sells off on earnings. Honestly, a lot of charts are setting up pretty nicely, guys, I have to admit. So let's continue watching this. Let's continue monitoring this. SPY is looking pretty good, above key levels, above previous all-time highs, looking pretty bullish right now. I don't know. Market's looking good, guys. I'm not gonna lie. VIX is below the 17.5 orange line now. As long as it continues getting stuck down here, it's looking pretty good. The market's looking not too shabby, right? And it's hard to believe Tesla will collapse too much more from here. So watch for those 1 hour fibs, and then ultimately watch for a break above 450 with that confirmed breakout as well, guys. Options flow on Tesla stock towards the end of the day was actually a little bit more kind of leaning bearish, right? So you can see, pretty equal bearish and bullish flow throughout the entire day. But you can see towards the end of the day, definitely some more bearishness came in, right? A lot more bearishness came in as well here. Some bullishness a little bit started to creep up towards the last, half hour or so. But, pretty mixed flow overall on Tesla here without a clear direction in either way. So pretty iffy, guys, pretty iffy. But in my opinion, wait for those Fibonacci's or, again, wait for the strength, guys. Wait for the strength. Not financial advice. Thanks for watching. See you Monday. Peace.